Welcome back to an episode of Clutch Gene Sports. I'm with Ashley Ariana today on the show. How's it going, Ashley?
It's going really good. I was just telling you behind the scenes that it's been a while since I've been the invited guest, and usually we do this on my channel. So right when you said like welcome back, I was gonna be like hi friends, and then I was like wait, this is Marco's intro.
Yeah,
But I'm doing good.
little different, but so first thing first. On today's episode, we're gonna be talking about a variety of different things. Obviously, we're gonna talk about if Brandon Ayuk will be a 49er in 2024, the 49er Super Bowl window. How does that look like? Expectations for training camp for those who are going, who are not going. Are the 49ers a better team on paper, or are they worse than they were last year? And then what do you want to see from Nick Sorensen, or what do you want to hear from those who are at training camp regarding Nick Sorensen, the 49ers' new defensive coordinator, headed into 2024? First and foremost, Ashley, welcome to the Clutch Gene Sports channel. Everyone, make sure you guys are liking, commenting on both channels. Go over to Ashley Ariana's personal channel. Hit that subscribe button as well. First and foremost, Ashley, will Brandon Ayuk be a 49er in 2024? And how do you see everything shaking up? Now, he requested a trade. That was a big boom to start the week. And then Ricky Pearsall goes on the non-football
Injured.
injury list. What are your thoughts on everything that's shaking up with Brandon Ayuk before we get into the 49ers Super Bowl window and training camp?
Okay, well I will say I think that him requesting a trade now, you have to follow me on this thought. But I feel like Brandon Ayuk has kind of gone about this offseason wrong. I feel like we've seen players kind of pick the heel side, right? Like Debo Samuel, he apparently he requested a trade pretty early on in the offseason. He was making it known through his family and his friends, meeting with Coach McDaniel from the Dolphins. I feel like he was playing the heel a little bit, even as much to say, he wants out and really putting pressure on the 49ers that way. And some people can look at that and say that that kind of bit him in the ass. I think it's turned a good amount of the fan base against him, even once they paid him. Then you look over at Bosa, who's someone who also went through a really long, drawn out thing. And even though obviously we as fans and content creators know that it was tumultuous because it didn't even get done till pretty much game one, but he kept quiet the whole time. There was no.
I'm gonna push back on that though, because Nick Bosa is Nick Bosa, right? The Bosas had their way with the, for example, Joey had his way with the Chargers when he signed his rookie contract.
Yeah, I
Nick
remember.
also had his way during his rookie contract extension. So they had their ways already, and they pushed back on the team to get their initial rookie contract. So the Bosas are a different kind of breed because they know their defensive player of the years. They know that he could go out and like, all right, then trade me. And immediately you're going to have teams calling for for two first rounders. You're going to have teams looking to actually want to have to trade for him, because if you think about it, like that is a little bit different. But I do get what you're saying in terms of how the antics were bigger than what you think they should have. And I'll push back on that a little bit later. But I wanted to
What
push back on Bosa right away.
what I mean isn't that I'm mad about the antics or lack thereof antics. What I'm saying by like if I was Brandon Ayuk's PR team or whatever, I just think he's played like a lot of back and forth where times where it felt like maybe he was reaching for leverage going on the Pivot podcast, right? That could have kind of stirred up a lot of he wants out, he's demanding a meeting with the 49ers, he's, setting his number here and telling the 49ers they need to miss it, really pushing. And you could potentially get some fans on your side if you feel, if you're putting out that you're disgruntled in that way and that you have contention with the 49ers. But he took the air out of his own podcast by immediately going on TikTok with the TMZ guy and saying, "Oh no, me and the Niners are fine. Everything's fine." And it's just like I feel like anytime he's kind of, made some sort of noise, which I think that's fine. I want players to get what they're due, but it feels like he hasn't committed to like he just requested a trade, right? And it's like I almost at this point with how he's acted wouldn't be surprised if he like showed up. And I feel like if he requests a trade, he needs to hold out. He needs to be like firm. I feel like he's been very wishy-washy
But
with
the
his
thing too
action.
is, I think you could request that trade for request a trade and still show up because you're not trying to lose money, right? Like if he does get traded, right? He's why lose out on money when if you show up, you don't practice, you're still getting that money anyways. So like if he
Yeah,
does decide
that's
to
a good
show
point,
up, I don't know
right?
if he is or not, but at this point, he needs to think about his own future. So if he decides to show up, he's gonna get money. I don't think he will. Do you think he's gonna show up to camp?
So no, I don't think so. Right? He didn't show up to mandatory mini camp. I think that he wants to be more dug in and that potentially he's been trying to be dug in and then play nice. Even on the podcast, he kind of talked about, oh, like, I thought there was going to get a deal done, but then I upped my offer. I feel like he has been back and forth, but at this point, with the season coming just right down the road, I think he's going to want to be firm. And if I was in his camp and really trying to push for the money he's trying to push for, I would say, yeah, you're going to miss out on the training camp checks, but if you end up getting the $2-3 million extra that you were going to get, I think that that's worth it in the long run. Um, but yeah, no, I think to go to the original question, I think Brandon Ayuk will 100% be a Niner in 2024. I think he'll be on the team. I'm still, and maybe this is naive of me, I'm still thinking that they're going to sign him. But I mean, the chances are going down and down, right? I think we did a podcast at the start of this offseason when all this stuff was happening, because I mean, right after the Super Bowl, he was already saying, am I going to be there? Am I going to not? Where I said, I think they're going to pay him, the first day of training camp. Um, I still hope that they do that. It seems more unlikely, don't you think? I think both sides feel pretty dug in, and maybe the 49ers aren't willing to up their offer. Or maybe they've just been making him stress for no reason. And, right the day before minicamp, we're going to have to emergency go live because they're going to have signed him. That, in my opinion, if they're only off by 2 million, I think having a prepared Brandon Ayuk to start the season is necessary to win a Super Bowl. And I think Jed York, Kyle, John Lynch would all pay a random person $2 million if they thought it gave them a better chance at winning a Super Bowl. So if they really are only off by that little, I would suggest they pay him, and they pay him as soon as possible so that BA can be 100% in training camp. He can start amping up for the season. His girlfriend gives little looks at their life. And I know the last 2 seasons, heading into training camp, she's talked about how training camp is a switch for these guys. They go grocery shopping, they totally prepare, and they get in the season mindset starting training camp. Obviously, all off season they're preparing, but that's when they really lock in. So is Brandon Ayuk going to have that same lock in if he's not really there? I don't know. Maybe it's hard for him to do that when he doesn't even know if he's going to be a 49er. So if I think the 49ers should pay him going into training camp. I don't know if they will. I think even if they don't, he ends up playing on the 5th-year option. So to answer the question, yes, I think he'll be a 49er. But for the 49ers and winning a Super Bowl, I do think that they should pay him. I definitely did say that I thought they were going to a month or two ago. I'm less convinced now. I think they might both end up dragging it out longer.
I disagree with a lot of what you were saying in terms of you
Okay,
kind of
Marco, let's play.
mentioned like he went about it the wrong way, right? Like you're saying like you didn't really like the antics. I don't think for me I could say he went about it the wrong way because the 49ers are also using the media to put on a smear campaign, right? There was times where they used Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, they used other people like Mike Silver possibly in the sense of Mike Silver kind of mentioned like, well, the 49ers are kind of making it a Debo or Brandon Ayuk situation. Let them duke it out, right? Turning teammates against each other, one. So like in a way, that's kind of like making like, hey, you were him. It's gonna be a fight to death.
It
Adam
feels like
Schefter
he's
went on.
seeing it that way because he's been training his
Absolutely,
ass off, right? He
and he
knows
should
this is
because he's in a
gonna be a
contract year
contract year.
technically.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at that situation, like I felt like Brandon Ayuk went about it how he had to go about it because of how the team approached things, right? If the team disrespected him, if the team or he felt disrespected at least, this was his way of going about it and letting the media know or letting the fan base know it's not me who's doing this. I want to be a 49er for life. The 49ers don't want me to be a 49er. They're doing this because they cannot afford me. And if they can't afford me, guess what? Trade me. If you yeah, they did draft. I know I brought up Robin the Bay's comment earlier. They drafted two receivers so they won't pay BA. What I think that's a
Well,
very bad
Ricky's
way to
not
look at it
healthy.
because Ricky Pearsall is not healthy. Two, we don't even know what Ricky Pearsall or Jacob Cowing will be in the NFL.
Yeah,
We're
we can't
projecting.
anticipate they're gonna replicate that production.
So we're projecting that the first round pick can replace a Brandon Ayuk. So when I look at everything for the Brandon Ayuk situation, I don't think he went about it the wrong way. I think he went about it how he had to go about it, or how he felt like he had to go about it, which is all due respect to him. If you feel like you need to publicly say, I don't think they want me here, say it because you're telling the fans, you're giving the fans what they want or what they want to hear in terms of how is the situation going and how is it going to play out. Um, no, and I'm not saying you're projecting that but what I'm trying to say is we can't assume that those guys are automatically going to replace them, and the Niners shouldn't either. What they needed to do is they knew they were coming to a situation where it's either Debo or Brandon Ayuk, and I think that's the biggest thing where you have to take a look at the 49ers. I think Brandon Ayuk will be a 49er in 2024. I'm not sure if it's on an extension
He could be a
or if it's on
49er in
that fifth year.
2025.
In 2025,
That's the
yes,
real
and I think I personally think Brandon Ayuk's going to get extended. I don't think he's going to not play on the fifth year option. For the 49ers to have Brandon Ayuk on their roster, it's either a fifth year option or he's not or extension or he's not on the roster. I firmly believe that Brandon Ayuk knows, and this is something that a lot of players, agents should be telling them if they are serious about their athlete. My job is one thing only, to get you paid. Now, I agree that I want you to win a Super Bowl. I want you to be a Hall of Famer. But what's worse is if you have a ring, your Super Bowl ring, but no money and you're broke. I didn't do my job right. Brandon Ayuk's agent needs to hold his ground with his friend John Lynch, and he needs to get Brandon Ayuk paid, whether it's with the 49ers
friend
or it's with
aspect of
another
that is
team.
so interesting. I forget about that sometimes. They're like best friends, right?
Yeah, they're really close friends. So that's a big thing too, right? Like so for me, I don't think Brandon Ayuk wants out. I think he wants to be a 49er, and I think he's been vocal about that. And I think that's why he went on what he had to say about the 49ers not wanting him and him feeling disrespected, going on the pivot, trying to give his perspective of what was happening and explaining to people, I'm Brandon Ayuk. I don't need the 49ers. I'm an elite receiver. I think the 49ers need me just as much as I need them. And I think that's true. He could go out and produce with another team at a high rate. We got Leroy saying, let's stop being in his girlfriend. Let's stop being in his girlfriend. That's extra BS. That's not needed. There is enough drama going on. I don't need to add more to the BS oil. I think when you look at it, I think his girlfriend saying something or her saying this possibly be the last year of us being a 49 on her TikTok, I think that's totally fine. Um, one, because she didn't say
Like his
nothing
way of
wrong.
having family kind of stick up for him and have whatever leverage that they can have, right?
Yeah, in the sense of what she was trying to say is giving the truth. Like, we don't know if we'll be here next year. She
Yeah.
knew that they're on a fifth year option. She knew there's a possibility of him getting traded. So it's definitely, I don't think what she said was wrong. But it does add to the situation. Ayuk will get extended likely around 28 to 29. My prediction has always been 28 million. I think he
Yeah.
gets extended. William Roberts says,
That's why I think the 49ers, as a fan, I would be disappointed if they're really at 26 million and he's asking for 28 and they don't meet him there, because $2 million and a better chance at the Super Bowl is more important in my opinion. But sorry, go ahead, read this.
No, I agree with you. That 2 million, it's at the end of the day, if you win the Super Bowl, that 2
That's
million is
worth
pocket
it. Like,
change. It's
look
pocket
at that
change to an
San Jose,
owner.
right? Like, they were paying Jared Goff 50 million when they won the Super Bowl. Like, I don't know. I think you do whatever each year. You should try to set your team up to be the best possible team that year to win the Super Bowl. And obviously, you have to prepare for the future at some point. But right now should be the most all-in year. And it feels like last year was the year, which is disappointing. But they didn't win it last year, and they have this one extra opportunity. So to get hung up on something like $2 million would just be really disappointing for fans that, season ticket holders, all these guys that are so invested. Jed York can't spare $2 million if that could be so helpful. Say Deebo Samuel, I think he, is going to try to perform great, but say he gets an injury or something. Ricky's already not going to be at training camp. Like, their wide receiver room is stacked, but, a couple injuries and it looks a lot more diminished really quickly.
Absolutely. And it's definitely interesting. So before we could transition, which was perfect because Super Bowl was brought up and possibly one last year was brought up, before we transition to, is this the 49ers do or die season? And is it Super Bowl or bust, kind of the last year with the core or the window? William Roberts says, if a deal by a team would come up with the Niners, trade Ayuk if a good trade deal comes up by a team. I want him to stay, but I'm just a fan. So I think he's trying to say if there's a good deal that comes up, you can't pass it. I want him to be on the Niners. I think that's kind of what he's saying.
I feel
Hey,
like asking
bullshit.
price has to be a 1 and a 2. So
Hey, bullshit, Justin. I can't.
Someone who's willing to pay him 28 to 30 million dollars
Oh,
and give up a first round pick and give up a second round pick. Okay.
no, you're
But I
not.
don't
The thing
think
is,
he's gonna
you're
do
not
that.
giving up no team. So we'll talk about
He's gonna do that, so he's
the
not leaving.
picks. The picks are not going to be a first round pick if he's traded.
That's what I'm saying. So
He's not getting a first because you may get one first round pick, but if you get that first round pick, it's going to be a team that needs to pay him. So that at that point, it's like, wait, I have to pay him, right? So that's
why I don't think he's going anywhere.
Big factor, right?
The asking price wouldn't make sense for the other team.
Hey, take it easy, Justin. Just because I'm not wearing that White Sox hat, just because he jokes with me all the time. He's a Cubs fan. He's a Cubs fan. Justin, you'd rather see this over a White Sox hat? Jeez.
I like your hair. I like you can see the curls a little.
Parag needs to win this deal and just like they let Buckner walk over $2 million, and they were wrong by letting Buckner walk, so that's why they shouldn't let that happen.
Well, also,
learn from your mistakes.
With the Buckner, the reason, this is even more. It would look way worse than the Buckner thing. Maybe not like afterwards because the player they got didn't work out. But with the Buckner thing, you have to realize they got pick number 13, right? So they got a super high pick for Buckner, a first round pick in the draft that year, which is why I said if they were going to trade Ayuk now, they would need 2 picks because they'd be going an entire year without getting a player to replace him. So they got a top pick that year. And their cap situation was way worse. Right now, they can't afford Brandon Ayuk. It's not, when they traded Buckner, it really was Buckner or these other players. Someone has to go because we're in cap hell. They're not in cap hell right now. They can afford to keep BA and Deebo this year.
Absolutely, and it's definitely going to be interesting. So we did mention 49ers Super Bowl window. Obviously, with Brandon Ayuk, it's much better. I personally think this is a do or die season for the 49ers. You have 4 of the, I believe, so a lot of the executives gave their top 10 list. They have 4 of the top 10 players in the NFL, at least according to a lot of executives around the NFL. They have what we consider one of the best coaches in the NFL. So essentially, you have everything it takes to win a Super Bowl. Is this the final year of the 49ers Super Bowl window? How do you see the 49ers Super Bowl window going? Do you think this is something that the 49ers should think about this season? Is this a Super Bowl window or is it closed already?
Or is it closed already is hard. Did you watch that receiver show?
I did. I watched the only episode I have not watched is like the final episode or the final 2. But for the most part, I've seen it.
I haven't seen it all, but I've seen some of it, and something that stuck out to me was, I think it was in episode 1, Kittle was reflecting on the Super Bowl loss of 2019, and he was talking about his infamous "We will be back" statement, and talking about how he likes to speak things into existence, how once he says it out loud, he feels like he can believe it. And when I'm watching this, because obviously this interview is done before he knows that they're about to lose the Super Bowl again this year, right? And all I could think about was prior to the Super Bowl, or post Super Bowl loss this last season that just passed, all the reporters prompting George Kittle to say the same thing, say we'll be back, say we're going to go back, and Kittle not saying it, and Kittle looking kind of like a shell of himself. And whether that's because disappointment in Kyle for not giving him the targets, or disappointment just in the loss in general, or maybe just his body was obviously in so much pain and kind of breaking down, and maybe there's this realization that he's older, and can't sustain the 18 or 17 game season anymore. um I don't think the Super Bowl window has passed. It's hard, right? Because it feels like, if I say to someone like, is can a team go to back-to-back Super Bowls? I mean, unless you're the Chiefs, it feels almost impossible. So in that way, I want to say I don't think that they're going to get back, and the Super Bowl window for this core would then be closed. But I do think if they went all in, if they can, so much of last year was injury luck. Starting the season with a healthy Christian McCaffrey and a healthy Brock Purdy. I know that we weren't sure how he's going to perform, but both of them had gone through training camp, and starting the season and then ending the season with those two healthy. Under Kyle Shanahan, that hasn't happened, where the quarterback and the starting running back were healthy throughout the year. So that's, some of that is just luck, and also maybe the training staff. But underrated storyline, they moved off the training staff that they've had for the last couple of years this season. So they have a whole new training staff. So do I think that the Super Bowl window is absolutely closed and they can't get back? No, I think they still have so much talent. They have a quarterback and they have a coach, and I think that's what matters most. Um, if injury luck is on their side, I think that they could get back to the Super Bowl this year. Yes. And even if they don't win it this year, I don't necessarily think that means their Super Bowl window is closed for Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan. But for this core, yeah, I think there's going to be major changes. They've kind of patched it together and done a version of, running it back, revenge tour for the last couple seasons. And it feels like after this season, there's going to be a huge transition to more younger guys growing with Purdy, which is a reason why I would hope that they keep Brandon Ayuk, because he's the younger of the wide receivers and feels like he'll have a little bit more longevity than Debo. No offense to Debo. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question. I feel like I gave a response of how it could be any of the things that you said.
Yeah, absolutely. You gave a good answer, and I'll ask you a question after I'm done kind of answering this. I'm gonna go over some comments real quick. Niners cap hell is coming next year when BP gets paid negative, because they could push his cap numbers down the line. So his first couple of years, it won't necessarily be those $40 to $50 million cap hits or whatever he's getting paid. It won't be those mega cap hits. It'll be in like that year 4, 5, or however long the contract is. If it's a 4-year contract, you're looking at year 3 and 4 being the bigger numbers. So not necessarily. It actually kind of helps the Niners tax purposes this year and next year if he gets extended. Just depending on later, it'll be down the line. People have been Jonas.
Can I derail you really quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to stir up some shit with that last comment. Do you think that with Brock Purdy, they're gonna follow their structure that to me has been completely maddening, where they've made people wait to get extended, or are they going to end the season next season and pay Brock Purdy right away?
Man, I don't know. Because Brock kind of has all leverage. Because Brock's kind of in the same situation Bosa was, right? He has all the leverage. Like, you need me. I don't need you.
Yeah.
And there's teams that want me.
I saved your job. You've been on record saying I saved your job.
So it's definitely interesting. Justin says
it'll be interesting this year. Do they do something like, how I feel like what they're using against Ayuk right now is, hey, you performed really good, but lack of targets. Are they gonna take the ball out of Purdy's hands more and maybe try to lowball him and say like, hey, you've been outstanding, but you're not in this elite level, so accept less? Or I don't know, maybe Kyle will give him more power and just try to win a Super Bowl. It'd be kind of silly to be trying to call plays based on being able to offer him a lower number later on. But I feel like we've seen it at least hypothesized that they do it before. Contract years, they kind of can sometimes screw a guy.
And then we have Justin saying Super Bowl window is getting so close to closing unless there's this and next year rookie class where they hit hard on these 3 to 4 picks. That's very interesting.
Their problems drafting is going to catch up to them.
Justin also mentions influx of cheap contracts are going to be a huge factor. We also have Jonas saying Adam Peters was low-key awful at drafting. Kinlaw 3 first on Lance. Ambry Thomas, hope things are better with him. The 3 first on Lance is actually Kyle Shanahan's fault. Kyle Shanahan signed off and wanted that trade to happen to go get a quarterback. He chose Trey Lance. 2, Kinlaw was a John Lynch pick. 3, Ambry Thomas definitely was an Adam Peters pick. He talked about the intangibles. But he also, where you're missing too is then Adam Peters also drafted George Kittle, Fred Warner. He also drafted a lot of the key guys that are on the roster. So is it Adam Peters' fault? Is it John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's fault? We could talk about either one.
Had a good draft this year.
Actually, we don't know how it's going to be. I mean, at least on paper, it looks good. Yeah. On paper, it looks good, but
they did good this year.
So it just depends on what you're looking at, because in my opinion, I thought Adam Peters, the way things have said, and he was vocal about the players that he wanted. What players, Rob, we could also say the Niners got lucky about a lot of the other players they drafted. Like the draft is about having some luck in it. I know a lot of people are talking about whether the 49ers in their last few years of the Super Bowl, XYZ. So for me, I'm gonna before I talk about are the Niners in the Super Bowl window, the player he drafted who's injured was a projected a top 15 pick. He fell because of the injuries. He had two picks in the second round. That was actually one of those picks where, hey, we have the picks to play around with. I could trade back up into the draft. Let's get a player who we know could go and get. I think that to them was smart because they got a player who was projected top 15 for majority of the draft process and everything like that. The fact that he had the injuries made him drop to the second. If he ends up hitting, great. If not, they had the extra picks this season, this draft, to play with and actually go out and try to do something like that. This was the perfect opportunity to do it. We've seen the Niners take players who don't even play for the Niners. Joe Williams. So we could go back and forth. I get what you're saying, though, Jonas. I agree with what you're saying. Drafting has been a key for the 49ers on not being able to hit on players. But for me, are the 49ers, is this the final year of the Super Bowl window?
It doesn't look like, I mean, I know that guy was saying a lot of that's on Peters, and I don't know how we tell who drafted who, but not a great news week for the 49ers with the follow-up to Ayuk's trade request being, hey, Ricky's gonna be injured. Because people are saying like he was just an interesting storyline to look at just because BA wasn't going to be there. So can you replace BA? But what people have to understand is even if Brandon Ayuk's contract was done and he was at camp, Ricky was going to be a huge storyline. That's their first round pick. They spent a high resource on him when guys like Cooper DeJean were there. I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to shit on it, but watching Ricky Watch was going to be a top storyline. And it's going to be interesting. I think they talk on Tuesday, right? Do you know, I know that you're not, there, but do you know if Kyle will have to say what Ricky's injury is and how long it was? Because wasn't Grant saying a couple weeks ago that even during minicamp he had a non-contact jersey on?
Yeah, he did have a non-contact jersey on. I'm not sure what the injury was, but definitely it should be answered once everyone's there, reporters are there and everything like that. It should be answered. I'm not sure if he's required to answer, but it's definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah, knowing Kyle, he could be like,
I don't know. The training staff told me some medical term.
About your first round pick? Oh my god.
This is the kind of answer he's going to give them. I don't know. The medical staff told me in medical terms, the medical name of what the injury was, and to be honest, I don't remember. You got to ask the medical staff for that one. And like, kind of play it off. Like he typically tends to do that every once in a while.
Yeah, say a lot of words, but give no answer.
So I don't know. I don't know if they have to report it during the offseason. I don't know if that's something they have to do during the offseason. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But for me, when I'm taking a look at the Super Bowl window, right, there's going to be a change in a major drift on how the football team of the 49ers looks like within the next 2 to 3 years. Whether you don't have Brandon Ayuk, Debo, Trent Williams retiring, possibly George Kittle retiring. We heard him on receiver talk about how what's life after football. He wants to stay healthy. He wants to be able to do WWE wrestling. His wife mentioned it as well. And they mentioned that his health is key for them. I'm not saying he will retire or leave the sport of football within the next 3 years, but something you definitely got to think about. Especially when you start having to pay.
There's a few players that it feels like if they get injured or retire suddenly, the 49ers are screwed. Like when you ask that final year Super Bowl question, Trent Williams, he leaves.
Trent Williams
for at least 3 or 5 years because they don't have someone behind them. Same thing with Kittle. They don't have like a backup plan in the wings. It feels like
Cameron Latu.
You kind of have that rookie guy that's like learning to take over. They're just like hoping and a prayer on some of those guys.
So you don't believe in Cameron Latu. I see it. So for me, looking at everything, the Niners have the opportunity, right, to win a Super Bowl this year. Now, I know a lot of people were saying that the Super Bowl window, every other year, people were saying the Super Bowl window closed. Is it open? Is it closed? They went to the Super Bowl in 2019. They didn't get back for another 4 years. Last year, they obviously lost the Super Bowl. Now, you're going to lose a lot of your players. You don't have – if those players that you lose, you don't have the players that are young to step in right away and fill that role at a high level. So when I'm looking at it, this year might be the close of the window. The only thing that keeps that window open is if this year we find out, if, for example, let's say this year the Niners do trade Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy still looks elite without Brock Purdy. I know someone mentioned, what if Brock Purdy doesn't look good without Brandon Ayuk earlier in the comments? If Brandon Ayuk is traded and Brock Purdy looks elite still, or he looks like a top 5 to 10 quarterback in the NFL, then your Super Bowl's window is as open as it possibly can be until Brock Purdy decides to hang him up. Because technically, all you need is that quarterback and a coach who could get the best out of his players to win a Super Bowl. So I think it might close for a year or two because you have to retool. For example, look at the Rams, right? After they won their Super Bowl, they lost a lot of players. Players started retiring. It closed for a little bit. Now they're ready to make a run, a deep playoff run.
I mean, because last year I felt like they were impressive, and if they continue on that upward trajectory, Sean McVay, underrated coach.
But again, they have the coach and they have a quarterback, so like you have that opportunity to make it a 1 year quick rebuild, a retooling year. So I think the Niners are in a great situation where technically, yes, this might be the final year of the core of like some of those key guys where you want them to win a Super Bowl, you want them to get there and finally win it. So they come back and they stay happy. They don't decide to retire. But I think the window's all in Brock's hands. If Brock goes out and he continues playing elite with everyone on the roster, I think the window might be open as long as he's around. But now if Brock takes a step back, I think the window's completely closed. If he takes a bit of a step back, I think it's closed. The only way you can win a Super Bowl is if Brock's playing as good as he did last year, or if not better. I don't think you could win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy if he plays any worse than he was last year. I think that last year showed he was able to get them to the Super Bowl. He was able to play really well in the Super Bowl. So I think the Super Bowl window is all up to Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan at this point. And I don't think it's that fair to actually really say. I think it's kind of a negative for me to really say this, that it's in Brock Purdy's hands. But realistically, it's in his hands as well as Kyle Shanahan. If you have the right quarterback, as Kyle Shanahan has said, John Lynch, Jed York, they've all said this. You have the roster. There's no more damn excuses. As the head coach, you have to win a damn Super Bowl. That's my opinion on it. Just to take a look at how it plays out, I think the Niners may be able to get back there, like everyone said on the show, of receiver. George Kittle said it. Debo said it. It's hard to get back. And obviously, with training camp here, you need to go through training camp before you can even think about the Super Bowl. So I guess we'll find out in 2024. Like Jonas says, we'll find out in 2024 if Brock is elite or if Brock's just a very good quarterback. Now, what are your expectations? Are you attending training camp at all any days? What are you expecting to hear from training camp? What do you want to hear from players? Who do you want to stand out? Who are you expecting to be a stud or a dud? What's your thoughts on training camp right now?
Okay, well, Marco, we were supposed to be best friends and go to training camp together. And then you told me, I just didn't even want to do that. I didn't even try. I
I
didn't want
try
to
to get
do it.
tickets.
I
Someone,
know.
what's
For
crazy is, hey,
for anyone
I'm in a
who doesn't
Facebook
know, I'm joking with right now.
I'm in a Facebook group where it's like season ticket holders. So if you're watching and you could get me training camp tickets for the August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, please DM me on Twitter or message me somewhere because I was on Facebook like the Ticketmaster site was trash for all season ticket holders. Season ticket holders were not able to get the tickets that they normally are able to get. Normally I get my training camp tickets from a good friend David Lichty who's a season ticket holder. He wasn't able to get the tickets he normally gets. I go to I go over to the um 49ers website or not a website, website on the 18th yesterday to try to get some. It crashed like 10 times. I got in, gave me a white blank page. Terrible. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to Facebook. There's a Facebook group I'm into where I normally buy tickets from every once in a while. Message people on there who are selling the tickets. Someone was like, "Hey, you could get a training camp ticket for $100." You're tripping. I'm not paying $100 for no training camp ticket. It's training
No.
camp. Like it's
He's
not even a game.
3, which is
Be
crazy.
be fucking for real. Like fuck's wrong
Yeah.
with you? So I thought that was ridiculous. So that's why I'm not going. But back to training camp. Are you going? What are your expectations for the team and what do you want to see from training camp?
So I'm definitely excited to watch certain position groups. I think looking at which linebacker kind of can emerge. Now, certain things are hard, right? Because you can't always see everything. So maybe initially I thought like it'd be nice to see Pooney and how he ends up looking in relation to everyone else. But I don't know how much like offensive line work they really do. I know eventually they put on the pads, but some of that seems like hard to tell until you're getting, preseason actual game reps. So I think wide receivers will be really interesting. If Brandon Ayuk isn't there, that's going to be the number one question. Is Ayuk there? Is he sitting on the offside? What is he doing? But moving on from Ayuk, I think if Mike Silver is right, and this is a all-out Debo Samuel versus Brandon Ayuk dogfight this year, Debo, we've seen him training with Jacob Cowing and Ricky in the offseason. By the way, did Debo get Ricky hurt? I'm just kidding. But you saw
Whoa! Shots fired! Bang bang!
we saw tons of pictures with them training together. I'm wondering, Debo's kind of always had that leadership role with the like walking out to the music type of thing. But for training camp, the last 2 seasons, we've really gotten reports that BA is that offensive guy. BA and Fred Warner kind of going back and forth. So I'm interested, will Debo kind of take a step up? Will Debo kind of take a step up and um really be a leader who goes all out during training camp? So I'm interested to see Debo. I'm interested to see the backup linebacker position, how that ends up going. So I think those are the 2 most important that I'm going to be looking at outside of things like I said that I'm not sure how you test. I think defensively, Nick Bosa's going to be huge this season, obviously with a new defensive coordinator. But when we look back at the defensive success last year, it's kind of interesting. I don't think a lot of people talk enough about how Bosa was paid as if he was, a quarterback. He was paid elite money. And he was coming off of Defensive Player of the Year season. And for him, and I know a lot of people might push back because he had an okay or good season comparatively to a lot of edge rushers, but for him, he had a bad season last year. So does he have that elite season again that allows the rest of the defensive line to perform way better? Because that's what we've seen from him every year except for last year. So it'd be interesting to see how how in shape is Nick Bosa, what's going on with that linebacker across from Fred Warner position. And then I'm really going to be looking at Deebo Samuel. Is he, half-assing routes, or is he running every route? Is he talking to the rookies, really coaching them up? That'll be interesting. With injuries, is Hufanga going to be practicing, or is he going to be on the
That's a great
side?
question. I think he's on the side to start. I think Hufanga's on the sideline to start at least the first week of training camp. You don't want to push him full go. I'm pretty sure he's ready to go. Like, he got injured early, so I'm sure he's good to go. But I think he'll be on the sideline. I do like what you said about the linebacker group. I want to see D Winters and Jalen Graham be given an actual opportunity over a guy like Devondre Campbell and Dimitri and Flanagan Folds. We know what those two guys are. Let the young players get the opportunity to see something or
mark.
do something, like, because truthfully, I don't think they got a shot last year to win that Sam linebacker spot over Oren Burks. I thought Oren Burks was really bad in training camp. I thought D Winters and Jalen Graham were a little bit better of these days I was there. I did see someone mention Robert Beal Jr. I do want to see Robert Beal Jr. Make that jump. Obviously, he has the athleticism and the traits. He was, I believe, injured most of the season last year. Finally was activated, played well in the reps I seen. How does he look? Obviously, Drake Jackson, everyone. I remember last year after week 1.
Fortunately, I feel like it's going to for him.
I think he's done. I after his first year and then watching him against the Steelers and getting 3 sacks, I had wrote up an article and I had mentioned I thought they were all fake sacks. And what I mean by that is all hustle stats. He was quarterback was getting pushed out of the pocket, whether it was by Armstead, Bosa, and everything, and Drake Jackson was just getting the effort hustle that he was able to get to the quarterback. It wasn't true sacks. Steve-O dropped that trade proposal. I kept dropping that comment. I want to see your trade proposal. Thank you, Robin the Bag. Make sure you guys do me a favor. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button on both channels. Go over to Clutch Gene Sports and then go over to Ashley Ariana's personal channel. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit that like button.
Lots of content coming out. It's the season is picking up.
Yo, what up, Wolf Speed? So for me, it's definitely one of those ones where, for me at training camp, I like what you said. Like, the receiver room, obviously, it's going to be monitored. If no Brandon Ayuk, how does Deebo approach the youngsters? Obviously, he took them under his wing, which is great to see. But how are they creating separation? Are they actually running the proper route? Are they doing? How does the offense look with no BA? Who is that guy who punches Fred Warner in the face and they start a fight to get the defense going? That's what.
Like, we see that he's, in shape body wise, whatever. And maybe he's, prepared in that way, but does he, that's why I was mentioning other training camps. Cause it feels like last year was BA's, I would say, breakout year, but even the year prior, during training camp, the reports were all centered, because that was also before we had Christian McCaffrey, and the reports were all centered on Brandon Ayuk and just the kind of like he was bringing it to training camp. Like, it feels like some guys, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, they can kind of take off some routes, or feel like maybe because they're veterans, they don't really need it as much. And it felt like BA was always going 1,000%. So I'm interested to see if other players we're going to do that. Really quickly, talking about George Kittle, 2 players that I didn't mention, and the only reason they come to mind is just like immediately their injury, is Charvarius Ward and George Kittle. They both got that surgery the offseason. I think they both anticipated that they would be ready for training camp, but it'll be interesting to see, are they working out on the side, or are they really participating?
Again, 2 guys I think they should start on the side field. Why risk anything the first week of camp? Now, it allows you to actually evaluate the tight end room, right? Obviously, you're looking for a backup tight end. It allows you to see which corners are able to step up into that role to be that number 3 corner. So it gives you the opportunity to actually evaluate the guys behind them. So I think it's great if you allow them to.
Green against
Bernardo Green against Pearsall. Watch him lock up Pearsall like he did in college. Yeah, I want to see that.
Him like against Deebo, even like just against the starters, It's
going to be interesting to watch him because he likes to be an impressed man. It's definitely going to be one of those ones where, how does the defense look with the obviously new defensive coordinator? We'll talk about that in a second.
But some players I want to. Staley's going to be. That's
That's
what
going to be an
I wanted
interesting. We'll
to
talk about
training
that too
camp,
right now.
literally just to see where he's standing.
So for me, looking at everything, the 49ers, obviously some players I'm looking for to whether they to step up, have a good game, a good training camp. I want to see something from obviously D Winters, Jalen Graham. I want to see something from Braden Willis more so than Cam Latu. I think Braden
Right.
Willis has a little more wiggle room as a receiving tight end.
He at least
Um,
got on the field last year, so that's more than
that's
we
a
can say for
plus. It's
Cameron.
a good, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a good sign. And then I want to see how the secondary looks. Like it's probably the best secondary the Niners have had under the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch regime. How
Most
does this? How does the safeties look? Who's starting where at the safety room? But the biggest and the most important spots on the roster that everyone should be watching more than, in my opinion, anything, center and right guard. I think those are the biggest keys to the 49ers Super Bowl run. Who's starting at right guard? Is it the rookie? Is it Feliciano? Obviously, we know Colton's going to be there. Colton is Colton. How does he look in training camp? Probably not going to look great. So
Now
it is. It's Colton's
you
Colton.
prior training camps, right?
I have.
So that was kind of my question when I was bringing up Pooney. Is there a lot of evaluation and like decision making that can be done with the offensive line in training camp, or is it really something that they wait for the preseason to do?
No, so
Because
the
I don't know,
first
like how do you like practice being an offensive lineman when you're not like going at game speed?
so the first
I'm sure
couple
that
of
you do it. I just don't know how.
practices are usually non-padded, so you don't have full pads on, and then they start putting the pads on. Once they get the pads on, that's when you'll start seeing the offensive linemen do one-on-one pass rushing situations. You kind of see more so that you see during obviously run blocking. They're actually run blocking during training camp. They're not. It's not like they're telling the defensive lineman, "Hey, please move." Like they're actually run blocking. They're pass protection once they go 11s. They're actually trying to get after the quarterback. So like pads come on. And then once those pads are on, things are flying. Like you got to be able to hold your ground. You can kind of see who can and can't. Um, so that'll be an interesting topic. Um, I did see Steve-O. He said, "So trade BA for 2 first-round picks or seconds, whatever you think is he's worth for 25 picks. Take those picks for a center, right tackle, a receiver, whatever you want for the players this year. If not, trade Kyle for 2 to 3. Nah, you're not trading Kyle for
I
two
don't
to
think
three first
I
rounders.
don't think a
And
team is gonna give up 2 first round picks and pay BA, right?
yeah,
Am I
no
missing
team's gonna
like,
no
I
team's gonna
agree.
trade
I
two
feel like
ones.
John Lynch would be like, "Yeah, if you're gonna give me 2 first round picks for sure," but I
Yeah,
mean,
no
they
no.
told BA to look for a trade before the draft, and they couldn't even get a high second or high first round pick this year.
It's
How are they
because
gonna get 2?
teams also know though, like at that point on why he didn't get like that offer that they were looking for is, let's say I know the Niners aren't serious, right, about trading Brandon Ayuk. I know that like everyone knew they weren't because obviously you have that 5th-year option that he's on. You have the franchise tag. You better blow them away with an offer. If I come at you with 2 first-round picks right away to offer you that, you're like, damn, I might be able to get 2 first-round picks and probably sneak in a 4th-round pick there if I give them a 5th. If I give them something like that, you might be able to sneak another pick, and that's why teams won't give you that right away, that top level high offer that they typically would if they were in serious negotiations. So that's why I think why he didn't get offered what he was looking for. Um, another player that I'm excited to watch during or hear about during training camp. I want to see how Jacob Cowing looks. I think Jacob Cowing might be the better receiver out of him and Ricky Pearsall. I think he brings a little different dynamic
He's gonna have the
to the
chance to prove
49ers
it
roster.
now,
Yeah,
right?
so it's going to be interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting. He has to opportunities there, take it. So going into we're still on training camp. Obviously, the 49ers roster heading into training camp. Um, do you think the roster is better or worse heading into training camp?
Heading into training camp?
Yep, heading
Interesting.
into training camp.
I wanna say better. Last year, we weren't sure if Brock Purdy's elbow was gonna work properly heading into you know what I mean? And to be honest, it didn't really in training camp. It did by game 1, but I think just on the level that obviously quarterback is the most important position group on the team, and we're confident in Brock Purdy. And he's actually had an offseason not only healthy, but where he's been able to watch game film and practice. So I think just in that level, your quarterback position being more solidified makes you the better team. Now, Brendan Ayuk not being there takes some away, but Deebo Samuel seems like he's in better shape. But then you have to take into consideration all the guys that we just mentioned to look out for in training camp because of their injuries. I will say I feel like a plus minus obviously the most important position, Brock Purdy. The rest of the team was very healthy last year, and that's something I said when I talked about
Huge.
just whether or not this team will be successful this year is that going into training camp, going into the season, and then finishing the year, they had their quarterback and their starting running back healthy. And so I don't know. Yeah, I think I would say this year their secondary, I feel like, is more, but then I feel like the guys they are missing are impactful though. Like Dre Greenlaw, who's going to be on the other side of Fred Warner, that's going to be impactful. You know what I mean? George Kittle, how healthy is he? If he's off working to the side, last year he was super healthy. He's talked about when he's interviewed for the talking about the receiver show, he said half the reason that he agreed to it was because of how good he felt in his body and how he had a great offseason and he felt like he was 100% coming into this year. And that was, coming into last year. So the tight end position was more healthy last year. So I think just health wise, they might be a little bit worse, but talent wise, they have much more depth. I feel like that's the one thing that they did attack in the draft. I was hoping that they, got maybe a wow player or something. And they definitely focused on wow players in the past. This offseason, they focused on getting that depth, maybe anticipating, hey, it might have just been luck that we didn't have so many injuries. So at least now, if someone does go down, you have a lot, that are backing them up.
I would say the Niners roster, I think there's more depth to it. And I think that's why I brought this comment up. Is I think the depth is a little bit better in the secondary. I think the defensive line depth is a lot better. I thought that was a big issue heading into training camp last year. I think overall they're better on paper.
Also signed, at least.
And he doesn't have to worry about practicing or actually training. I know Jonas says the 49ers being healthy last year is a myth. They were 18th in games missed by starters. So I think last year they were 18th.
I'm not comparing them to the rest of the NFL. 18th for them is an improvement. They've been in the bottom 10 of health for a lot of Kyle Shanahan. Like specifically, like I said, running back and quarterback, most important position for the 49ers because they're such a run heavy team. Those are position groups that they have entered and left the season not healthy multiple times. So I think in just that aspect, they're doing well.
And I think for the Niners, like when you look at their health, yes, they did have starters miss quite a few games, but you didn't have any starters get taken out outside of Hufanga get taken out for the entire year. Like for the past couple of years, it felt like there was multiple starters out for 7 weeks, 8 weeks, full season length. That's kind of why I see it. I disagree with this comment, Kenny. I think Yadam is not very good. I think Yadam is a solid player. Very good players don't bounce around the league and play for like 5 different teams. On his 7th team, I believe. Yeah, 16. This is his 16th in the NFL. But I think he's had a good year last year with the Saints. It wasn't nothing. It was his best year. I don't think it was a great year. Definitely really better than. He's not really old. He's 28. I believe going to be 28 this year. So it's not old. So he could be coming into finally understanding how the NFL operates and stuff like that. Takes some players a little bit longer than others to understand how the NFL operates. But I would say he's compared to the Niners' third corner last year, he's very good. Compared to Ambry Thomas, he's very good. So but overall, I don't think Yadam is a very good corner in the NFL. 49ers have 4 starting caliber corners. They do have 4 starting caliber if you need one of them to spot fill. I don't think you could have one of them. You don't think Yadam. I'm guessing Kawa is mentioning
like Ward,
Green,
which once again we
Renardo
have to make
Green.
sure he's healthy,
Yeah.
and
The
then Demo.
Ward, Demo. I'm guessing he's including Renardo Green and then probably Yadam. That's just what I'm looking at.
I'd
Possibly
be
what he's.
interested in training camp to see if is Green is handsy, right? Because that was the report. The
Green is handsy. It's on the film. It just a player like that likes to play physical. He's going to be handsy. He's got to understand how the NFL is going to call the game. They don't call it like as much like that in college level. They don't call the holdings like that in college level. So adjust. Can you adjust? I think he should be able to. He has the athleticism, speed, and everything to adjust. I think this is interesting because Mustafa and Brown might start. I don't think they should be the starters. If Hufanga's healthy, you start Hufanga. He's the better safety over Mustafa as of now. Even better than Brown. What about Mostert?
they can work him in like every once in a while. That's what they did with Huff in the beginning, right? They just like they had him in on a couple where they had like 3.
His
I
rate,
don't know. I don't know
his
what he
rate
was
in defending the in route, he's 98%. So you're mentioning again, you're mentioning one route, right? Like what was his passer rating? What was like all that? Like no, I'm not saying he's not a good player. He's an average player. He had a career year last year. That's why the Niners signed him. But he's not one of the best corners on the roster. He should not start for the 49ers. If we're being honest, if he starts for the 49ers, someone either got injured or something happened. Because if you look at him throughout his career,
subscribe,
he
Kenny,
struggled.
because we'll be sure to report how he ends up doing in training camp. Like a lot of these things is funny. Like we'll see.
We haven't seen much of.
He injured his Achilles the final game, like in February. He's not going to be back. I mean, hopefully mid-season. It could even be he's out for the entire regular season, or at least until the end of
Absolutely.
it.
And this is a good comment. Wolfspeed says we haven't heard much about Greenlaw. What are your thoughts? I think Greenlaw misses the first 5 weeks of the season. That's just a random guess. I just think Greenlaw with the Greenlaw's opportunity and everything, get healthy. You're in a contract year. There's no need to rush anything. Take your rehab the proper way. I think that's what he should do. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on both channels, like Willspeed1 says. He's gonna have a role. I think he's your first corner up if, like, say one of your top 3 corners in Ward, Green, or Demo get injured. I think he's your first corner up. I think he's for sure your first corner up. But I don't see him starting. I think kind of more so what I'm saying. And I think just the way you said he's for me very good. I think the very part for me is kind of where I'm kind of leaning towards. But nothing personal, Kenny. Hope no one ever takes anything personal when I'm on the show. Nothing's ever personal. Greenlaw might be back for the playoffs at best. She's always taking everything personal. Now, what do you want to see? Obviously, Nick Sorensen, the Niners fired Steve Wilkes after the season. Everyone kind of saw that one coming. I thought that was the 49ers out. Now, I do think Steve Wilkes wasn't the greatest when it came to was that
scapegoat a little bit.
He was the scapegoat, and the reason I think our defense did struggle. They were still a top 7, top 10 defense. He held Patrick Mahomes.
When your most important player is going to struggle, your side of the ball is going to struggle.
Absolutely. When you look at your biggest game of the year, Super Bowl, he held Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense to 19 in regulation. That's huge.
And Kyle didn't doubt him enough to put the ball to put it in his hands at the end, right?
But the thing is, though, that's Kyle's.
We got to keep it on offense.
That's Kyle's scapegoat, right? Like, hey, it was in the defense's hands. It wasn't my hand. I didn't have to call the big play. That wasn't my fault.
Like, if he was that bad, why do you trust him with that decision? Maybe he wasn't that bad.
And don't get me wrong. I thought, for example, if I was the head coach, I would have fired freaking Steve Wilkes midseason. I personally would have, because I knew my players were frustrated with him. I knew a lot of other stuff. Now, I don't think his defense was bad. I would have made the wrong decision and fired him early in the season. I thought he was fired. I thought it was a scapegoat method. I think the 49ers.
Well, when you're saying that, then applying it to Nick Sorensen feels like the number one advice for Nick Sorensen is make sure the players, you have a good
You'll never
relationship with them because
you'll
they seem
never
like
get a
they're
defensive coordinator stick around unless they're a true defensive coordinator and they don't want to ever become a head coach. But in the NFL, when you finally get that opportunity to become a head coach, you don't pass on it. So you'll never have. That's why Kyle doesn't hire offense coordinators because he knows year in year out that
Saleh's
he's going
gonna
to
be
go
back
through
in
them.
25. Saleh.
So you'll
That's
Salah,
all. He's gonna be back in 25.
Robert Salah will be back in 25, according to
Obviously.
Ashley. But what are your expectations or what do you want to see from Nick Sorensen at training camp?
Well, I'm gonna be interested, mostly from a fan perspective, in what is his tone and like leadership style. I think Kyle has really benefited from having the defensive coordinator be kind of lively, be the motivator, the voice, maybe. You've always seen the guys that they've really rallied behind, both Sala and D'Amico, kind of were like the yin to Kyle's yang. Kyle has admitted before that he can be more negative. You see him on the sideline, even during an injury, during a good thing. He's kind of inside his playbook, pretty stoic. So I think it'd be great if we see that Nick Sorensen has a little bit of hump to him, some energy to
Oh,
try to
he
balance
will.
out.
He's Nick Sorensen will have energy. He's not at the level of Robert Sala and D'Amico Ryan's level energy, but he's gonna have energy. He'll have more enthusiasm than Steve Wilkes did for sure. Like
Yeah,
he's a former player. He's one of those guys where when something happens, he's gonna get up in your face like "Let's
it's
go"
good. I
kind of
like that.
guy.
I
Yeah, yeah.
like
He,
that,
he's
and I think that if Kyle is, um, what is it, like self understanding? I'm missing the term right now. But if Kyle knows
self
himself,
aware.
yeah, self aware, sorry. I think that he should only hire defensive coordinators that do bring that energy to really balance him out and have some, um, yeah, just balance to the team. You don't want it being too negative, too serious, kind of having players get in their head. I feel like Sala and D'Amico both gave some, life and freeness to the game. They reminded players, hey, this is a game. And I think you need a little bit of ease. I think Kyle can get too strung up. And we've seen that in the biggest moments when maybe we've, no offense, said that he's choked. I feel like some of that can just be nervousness within himself and having an opposite to him. One just as good in the coaching room. Maybe that'll help him a little bit. Help Kyle himself, but also I think it helps the players. So I'm looking for Kyle or for Nick Sorensen to be energetic. I'm also hoping that he brings that energy to his press conferences. He had two very different press conferences. His first press conference, he was
Was
like
oh.
mellow surfer, didn't know why he was there, seemed to have zero self-belief. I think it was Larry Kruger asked why, he was hired to be the defensive coordinator, and he was like, I don't know, ask Kyle. Like, but he didn't even say it with that much energy. He said, I don't know. Ask Kyle. And I was like, oh my God. Like at least live. Tell us what you're good at. Tell us why you deserve to be here. But then he did. He had a good press conference following that one. So maybe he was just really nervous for that first one. But I'll be interested to see his energy and control or leadership of the defense, because I want to know, is Brandon Staley really a castaway who doesn't have that big of a say and is just in the background? Or I'm interested, is Staley up there meeting the players, talking to them, having an influence on the game plan, having an influence on how things are called? I'm really interested to see that dynamic, because you don't want, let's say the defense is struggling, you don't if you're Nick Sorensen, you don't want to get fired mid-season because maybe Brandon Staley has endeared himself to some of the players and you don't have Nick Bosa on your side. That means you're doomed. That's what Steve Wilkes would say, is endear
And I
yourself to Nick Bosa.
and I think the biggest thing is when you look at Brandon Staley, like obviously we see Jason talk about, let's be honest, this is Brandon Staley's defense. It's interesting because I think the Niners and I think Kyle Shanahan needs to let the team know, like, look, this is Nick Sorensen's team. This is his defense. I don't care what anyone says. That's the guy you listen to. Kind of style of thing. Like,
I've
give
heard
him that
Kyle
confidence.
Kyle
But
say like
for
he didn't have to, because someone said like ask Nick Sorensen for his role or ask Kyle if he told
Yeah.
Nick Sorensen his role. And Kyle was like,
I
no,
think it
like,
was
I don't have to
Staley.
do that. They're going to work it out. And
Yeah.
I feel opposite. I think Kyle should take a strong stance both to their faces, Staley and Sorensen, but also to the players. Like, let the players know who's in charge. You know what I mean? So they're not confused and guessing. I mean, we've already heard, didn't Jimmy Ward, when he was having problems, instead of going to D'Amico, he just went straight to Kyle. Feels like there's not really that leadership position out on the other side of Kyle. And if Kyle has learned something, I think distributing the responsibility would be beneficial to Kyle. So if he could really give some power away to Staley or to Sorensen, then see, I'm already fucking up and giving Staley control. So I think Kyle should clear that to make sure that no one else is confused like I am apparently.
And like, I think so for me, more so what I was like, I want to see that. That's the big thing. I want to see like Sorensen exerting himself as that leader role. There's a couple other things I want to see from Nick Sorensen. What kind of blitz packages do you provide? What do you have when it comes to blitz packages? Can you bring the pressure and not just ask you the front four to get home? Because when you're doing walkthroughs, they usually go through on walkthroughs. Defense comes aside, they will go over their blitz packages, go over your blitz packages. What can you implement? Can you go press man? Can you go change it up so you're not the same shit every fucking play? Can you do stuff that is innovative? Can you, for example, the Niners, they interviewed some of the coaches they interviewed, Dave Merritt, the defensive back for the Kansas City Chiefs. First thing he told the 40, I think he didn't get the job because he told Kyle Shanahan straight up, I'm not running your fucking defense. I'm doing what I want to do. And he was very honest.
That guy. I felt like he kept it real. And I feel like
he
Kyle
kept it 100% real.
like that, you know?
And a lot of the coaches like that, Kyle, obviously he interviewed Daniel Bullock, who's a safety coach, obviously Brandon Staley. But I think you have to be innovative. You have to add a lot more to the basic stuff that Kyle wants his defense to run. Obviously, Kyle wants that Pete Carroll style of defense, like the base of it, the wide nine.
Yeah.
Does he go away from do the Niners finally go away from the wide nine? Because losing DJ Jones, this is something huge. I've been saying since the Niners lost DJ Jones. You can't lose a big guy inside and continue to go wide nine. You have to have someone big to replace him, or you're going to be struggling against the run. With no Armstead, is the run defense a struggle? Do you have a good run defense after? Can he provide that change with the 49ers? Steve-O says, do you think
is going to be huge this year?
Do you think BA documentary for BA or how SF does biz or Jimmy G, Lance Armstead? Steve-O, you got me hailing. I'm confused. Please do that again. You got me confused.
Coming out that I don't know about?
Is BA dropping a documentary?
Do you think?
He might be. War, Jimmy G. Do you think BA's documentary? Do you think the documentary for BA? I'm confused. Hopefully, you could give it to me.
I want this clarified because if there's a documentary coming out, that's going to be interesting.
And then I'm excited because it'll tell you exactly how everything played out. Damian Lee says the league needs to fix the rule. If you lose a coach, the receiving team owes you a second. I don't think the receiving team should owe you any pick. I think you should just get that comp pick because why am I gonna get punished for hiring a coach? Like I don't think that would work. I don't think any team would want that. That's because essentially you're trading for the coach at that point. You're not hiring a coach.
And they want to incentivize mobility within it. You know what I mean? It's already really a lot of, you talk to Domingo, you talk to Saleh, talk to Mike McDaniel, they're going to say, hey, it's hard enough to get a coaching job. Don't also now make it that if someone wants to hire me, they have to give up assets for it. You know what I mean? It's hard enough.
Absolutely. Mitchell and Ness says Saleh and D'Amico were very vanilla cover 3 with a random nickel blitz once in a while. It was too simple. Like you knew what they were in. Like most people knew what they were in. Evan Anderson, I think if you go back to my last
good sizes because
No,
Am I wrong?
D'Amico did. But D'Amico was a good innovator in blitzing. I thought Saleh wasn't as good as it of as D'Amico, but they ran simplistic. I thought D'Amico is a lot more innovative now as the head coach of the Texans, but he didn't have. We gotta remember when they were the Niners defensive coordinator, the Niners had dudes all around that defense. They had the
Yeah,
best
you
linebackers.
didn't have
Like you
to.
didn't. They had the depth. They didn't have to worry about anything, so they didn't have to do anything. Also, I think what played a big factor on Saleh and D'Amico cover three simplistic vanilla, their secondary, right? Like their secondary wasn't as good. Obviously, Saleh had Richard Sherman, who was on his last leg, literally, no pun intended. Evan Anderson, any hope? Go so Sivo, go back to my last episode. Rohan and I. So if you're subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe first. Go back to it. We talk about players we think should be a surprise make. You may find out, you may hear something a little bit about Evan Anderson. Hint, hint. If you watch it, I think he may be able to be a guy that makes the roster. So there's some hope there. Big guy, interior. I think Steve-O means in the documentary he's making for him or how San Francisco treats his players. So I'm guessing BA is making a documentary, I guess. That's what it sounds like. That's going to be pretty awesome. Excited to see that. Leon Sandcastle says, I don't think they're going away from the Seattle style defense. KJ Wright and Sorensen are both Seattle guys. They are, but also I would also put in a factor that Nick Sorensen played and coached under other coaches as well. So what does Nick Sorensen bring? Does he think certain style of
they put their own spin on it when they're finally in charge?
Like I know he was with Seattle to start his career, but does he bring? I believe he was with.
Wasn't KJ Wright like a flat earther?
KJ Wright, he's a flat earther.
Yeah, I feel like I remember that during 2020 with Kyrie Irving and stuff like that going on. Maybe. Sorry, that was random and off topic, but every time I see his name, I'm like, oh, I remember him doing that.
So for me, I just kind of see like how does he decide to change things up? Does he stick with what he knows, or does he go with what he thinks is innovative? That's kind of what I'm looking at. We have what else do we have? What other questions? He likes Robin the Bay likes vanilla. I prefer chocolate. I like chocolate. Anderson versus Davis is interesting. Clea Davis, it's going to be an interesting one. I don't think those are the guys that'll be beat out. My name's Davis. Stop using my name. Oh, your name's actual Davis, not Steve-O. Okay.
Steve-O, why didn't you clarify with the documentary comment?
Stop. Yeah, is it BA's coming out with it? Is BA coming out with the documentary? Also, this is a perfect time. Well, Steve-O answers our question because Steve-O may not decide to answer the question or not. If you're not already subscribed to both channels, I know there's a lot of you guys in here. Hit that subscribe button on both channels. I'll be going live every Friday with Ashley. We might be flip flopping, so you have to be subscribed to both channels, anyways.
Yeah,
Tuesdays I'll be live with the coach. He's on Grant shows on with Jesse every once in a while. Wednesdays I got with Rohan. Thursdays I'm with Jesse Naylor. Ashley, what do you got running throughout the week every week?
It's switching up a little bit. I think I heard from Stephanie. She's going in her own direction on her channel, but I'm sure every once in a while I'll still have her on Monday. But right now I got you on Friday and I got Tom on Tuesday. Also heard from Jose yesterday, and we might be picking up the show. He writes for SI.com as well. So I got all the SI guys. But yeah, and then might have been in the talks with a bigger YouTuber that I might. Oh, and then Eric Crocker. We haven't decided the exact week. I don't know if he's going to be free during training camp because he is finishing up some football camps going on. But at the start of the season, him and I are going to be going in the mornings as well. I think on Wednesday around 8 a.m.
So, sounds like a great stuff over there. Jason, Captain Niner Macy, I think he's saying Friday's show should be PN with me. I think he might have a show on Fridays in the afternoon. Well, that's it for today's show. Hopefully, Steve-O eventually comments whether it's BA's documentary or not. If you guys have not, hit that like and subscribe button on both channels. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell as well, so you know when we're going live, so you know how training camp looks, or you can hear from some of the guys on the ground. I will have Rohan obviously on the channel every trying to get him on every day during training camp, or trying to go live together, whether it's on his channel, my channel, so I could get the questions that need to be asked to him. So he's not just giving us stuff, and we're actually asking questions to him, Jesse, Coach. Try to get Grant on the show. Hopefully we can do all that. Ashley obviously is gonna be. You're being there, right? You're gonna be there, right?
Yep.
What, every day?
No, just a couple of the days.
Nice. So you'll have Ashley there. So have her on the show to talk about training camp, see what she sees and what she thinks may be happening at training camp and stuff like that. Well, that's it for today's show. Make sure you guys are all subscribed, like the channel. Make sure you guys tune in. I might do a call-in show. So I'm a little side note. I'm actually doing a scouting seminar with some NFL executives and NFL personnel, which I'm super geeked about. So
That's
I may
exciting.
do Papa J. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Even if he's on the show, you don't gotta watch the show. You can watch the shows that are not. You can watch the shows that are not with Grant. I think Grant does phenomenal stuff over there. So watch the shows that are not with Grant if that's what you want to do. But Grant does good stuff, man. So for me, doing a scouting seminar with NFL executives. So I'm pretty geeked about this. So whatever I learn, I might do a call-in show and talk about what I did or what I learned, and who I got to interact with and meet, who to learn from and whatnot. And it'll also just give you guys the opportunity to ask questions. So make sure you guys are dialed in. I might do that Saturday night or Sunday morning, depending on my schedule. If not, I'll do it Monday for sure. So it'll be either Saturday to Monday that I'll do that call-in show. I don't mess with Dave Lombardi. He acts like he's better than everyone else, man. He doesn't interact with any. He doesn't interact with anyone. He said he's never wrong when he's been wrong multiple times. At least other people that I bring on can admit when they're wrong and stuff like that. So that's just me, man. No disrespect to Dave Lombardi or anything like that. That's just me. So check this out, Papa J. So what you have to do is, I know you're trying to subscribe to the channel. So what you gotta do, and if you're on my channel or Ashley's channel, you gotta, when you get off of YouTube, type in Clutch Gene Sports on YouTube and make sure you go ahead and you subscribe to that channel. So you're not gonna see on her channel. You gotta get out of there, in the search bar, Clutch Gene Sports. If Rombo's willing to join, I've hit him up before, haven't heard back from him. So I'm gonna try to get anyone on. I'm down to have anyone on as long as they're willing to admit when they're wrong.
You guys want me to collab with?
I'll reach out to anyone.
Let them know. Comment on them. I feel like that's for both of us. If you want,
appreciate you, Rob.
Collab with anyone, let them know.
Yeah, let them know. Let me know. I'll try to get out to them. I've tried reaching out to Rombo. I don't know how to get a hold of him. Marco, please definitely ask how you go about becoming a scout. Kenny, hit my line. I could tell you how about becoming a scout. So hit me on social media, on Twitter, and everything like that, and I could hit you up. I know you mentioned earlier everything like that. So definitely, whatever I learn, I'm willing to share. Obviously, in my perspective, obviously you're not going to get what I learned because I'm not going to be teaching it like them. Just kind of giving what I learned. So it's definitely going to be exciting. Hope you guys all have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Stay blessed. Stay hydrated with this California heat. Love y'all. Go Niners. Have a great rest of your guys' night.